Hey everybody, how are you guys doing? I'm Eric Airlock, and this is another talk on Greek philosophy, specifically Plato's dialogue, the Crito. This is following the Apology, which we just had. Please watch the Apology as well as the other videos on Greek philosophy, as well as my other videos on Indian, Chinese, and Greek thought. In the Crito, which follows the Apology, Socrates is in prison awaiting his execution, and he argues with his friend and follower Crito, who offers to bribe the guards and finance his escape. Unlike Anaxagoras, who fled with the help of Pericles, Socrates refuses Crito's help and argues that it is wrong to commit injustice even if it is for the purpose of saving one's life. As in the Apology, Socrates places the good above avoiding death, being in accord with the cosmos above clinging to mortal life. Socrates seems to believe that we participate in a greater life other than our own, although he admits he does not know this, and so slighting the greater life for the sake of the lesser life is ignorance of the situation. Crito admires Socrates, engaging in dialogue with him, while the Apology is almost entirely a monologue of Socrates. The Crito is a genuine dialogue. Interestingly, as it can be seen in the text of the Apology, the original texts do not contain breaks between speaker or identify the speakers in the margin. Thankfully, scholars have worked to put Plato's dialogues in the format of a play, with clear indicators of who is speaking when. Crito tells Socrates that he is impressed by the peace and calmness Socrates displays in the face of death. Very stoic, very resolute. Before the Stoics, and Socrates replies that it is not death which is to be feared, but rather committing injustice. After discussing a dream Socrates had, which he interprets as saying he will die in 3 days, Crito tells Socrates that he can pay off the guards and anyone who would get in trouble for doing so, allowing Socrates to escape his execution and join supporters in other city-states. As this line of argument doesn't sway Socrates, Crito asks how Socrates can comply with the assembly when they are clearly committing an injustice against the gods and him. If Socrates believes, as he argued in the Apology, that he has been unjustly accused and should continue to do philosophy as the Delphic oracle and Apollo desired, why does he refuse escape? Is this not committing injustice, Crito argues, to allow injustice to happen? Crito asks Socrates to think of his children and of his friends, such that he realizes greater justice can be done by preserving his life. Socrates says that if he escaped, he would be violating the law, and that it is the law that supports the city. By staying in Athens, he must follow the law even as he disagrees with the verdict of the assembly. Because he grew up in Athens and chose to raise his children there, it would be an attack on the city that supported his life to disregard the law, Socrates argues. Ironically, this means that the city which gave him life is not wrong, but merely ignorant in condemning him to death. This social contract theory of sorts, as folks say of politics and the laws, is similar to that of the British philosopher Hobbes, for whom the fictional tiger is named. Calvin for the preacher and Hobbes for the tiger, who argued that the sovereign king has the right to commit any injustice because he is the one who provides all justice, which is not exactly what Socrates argues, but that is how Hobbes takes it. Crito says that the city would not mind if Socrates simply disappeared as long as he is out of Athens, whether by death or escape. Socrates refuses to go, which suggests he wanted his death to be symbolic of the ignorance of Athens and the wisdom that escapes him. Socrates has faith that doing the right thing will have the best impact in the long term, in response to Crito, who argues that preserving his life would have a greater effect. Socrates seems to have confidence that he already communicated his message, has shown the Athenians wisdom, even if they have rejected it, and so his execution would be more valuable than continuing to teach and question others. This is odd, and again, maybe Plato has written himself into a corner, as I said in the Apology, because, oddly enough, it seems like Socrates says he will continue to do philosophy even if they tell him to stop, so they're going to have to condemn him to death, so he is consistent in inviting death in both the Apology and the Crito, but he suggests that he is on a mission of the gods and not impious to the assembly when it suits him to say that he's on the mission from the gods, and he doesn't change tack But he then suggests now he argues essentially, in line with social contract theory much, but he argues now that he has to do what the city tells him. This again is a little bit confusing, like Aristotle, as mentioned, does say in his arguments about logic that it is sometimes right to, sometimes amongst the Triboli, it is right to kill your father if the gods demand it, which means if your super dads demand you kill your dads, then you kill your dads, because super dads trump dads, and that's the logic, which makes sense. Here, of course, you have a strange thing where Socrates, this is all Antigone all again, Socrates seems to say that I need to do what the gods tell me to do, even if I upset all of you and you want to kill me. And then he says, well, I have to do what the state says and I have to die. And not going to do philosophy, and now says because what the state says happens to align with what the gods would want, which is a sacrifice, perhaps. So it's lucky for Socrates that he had friends in high places. While the Athenian assembly ordered Socrates' death, they did not demand that he drink hemlock, which was only for those who could afford it. Those who could not were killed by exposure, or similar to crucifixion, bound and left to die in public as a lesson to others. Not only did Socrates have friends who could bribe guards, but could afford to buy expensive imported hemlock to spare Socrates the humiliation of pain of a terrible public death. So this is a shorter talk on the Crito. We're going to follow on the Meno, and going to follow with a couple of other talks, and going to work our way through several of Plato's dialogues, then on to Aristotle, and then to Epicurus, the Skeptics, and the Stoics. I believe the Skeptics, Epicurus, and the Stoics. One of those orders, I think that was the same one. All right, so have an excellent night, and see ya if I see ya.